Welcome to the Joy School Podcast. Real talk about what it takes to create your happiest, healthiest, and most dynamic life. And now, here's your host, transformational life coach, happiness strategist, and best-selling author, Kristi Ling Spencer.
Well, hello, friends, and welcome back for another episode of the show. I am so happy and grateful that you're here. Thank you so much for joining me. And I'm hanging out in my cozy living room today, which I sometimes turn into a workspace when I just feel like I need a change of scene. And my rescue dog, Mai Tai, is next to me hanging out today. She's kind of my co-host for today's show. She's a Beagle Jack Russell mix. And if you follow me on Instagram, you'll see the occasional picture of her. She is adorable. We love our furry friends, right? They add so much to our life. So today we're going to have fun calling out some of our own BS. And I am so excited about this topic because I really feel like there are powerful things to say around this subject. Now, there's a saying all over social media and in the personal development world that we've all heard lots and lots of times. And that is, you are enough. Now, that sounds lovely, right? But is this really true all the time? And what is it really saying? Today, we're going to talk about why sometimes that is total BS and how we can look at this idea in some healthier, much more empowering ways that serve us. And why sometimes having days when we're not enough is part of the bigger picture of actually becoming the best version of ourselves and becoming more than enough, right? And also how personal responsibility is big time personal power. I know my life changed significantly when in my journey to become a happier, healthier person, one of the big choices I made was to take personal responsibility for my actions and for the choices I was making in my life. And it made all the difference. So are we ready? Let's dive into this. Here's the thing. Some of the very best changes, best successes, and most amazing personal transformations come from a place of recognizing that we haven't been giving our very best to life, that we haven't been putting 100% toward our dreams, and then realizing that we owe ourselves better than that and making a conscious choice to change that and making a decision to commit to showing up for ourselves. Because showing up for ourselves, showing up for our dreams, showing up for the things that are meaningful to us on a regular basis and with consistency is the key to everything, friends. So one of my favorite quotes is from Neil Donald Walsh, and it says, "If you want the best the world has to offer, offer the world your best." I love that so much. I actually have it framed in my office, and I even included that quote in my book, Operation Happiness. It's so significant to me, and it really helps keep me on track. It's a little bit of a harsh truth, right? But it is the absolute truth. We all know that when we're at our best, we feel great and we accomplish things and we check things off our list. And we also all know when we're not at our best. And we're human. We're going to have off days like this now and then, and that is totally okay. We might even go through longer periods when we're in a bit of a funk, right? We've all been there. I know I've definitely been there. It's part of the human experience. And giving ourselves the grace and compassion for that is a beautiful thing. But also not letting it drag on for too long to where it's dragging us down is also a beautiful thing. So what I'm talking about here is when we slip into a place of allowing the off days to become the norm rather than the exception, where we're having many, many, many of those in a row, the extended funk, I like to call it, when we're buffering from the realities of life. And maybe we're overdoing things like eating junk or over drinking or spending too much time on the couch or just generally indulging in habits that aren't supporting us. We have all been in that place before, and we're all going to have days like that now and then. But when they last too long, it's really not fun. I've definitely been there. You can probably relate. But that feeling deep inside that perpetuates when we know we are capable of more, that feeling can really eat away at us when we're in that funk, right? When we know that we should try and snap out of it. And then it just becomes this cycle of feeling bad and staying in the funk because we beat ourselves up for not getting out of it. So there are tricks to that. And we're going to talk about that. Now, there aren't many things that feel crappier than when we know in our heart that we're slacking and we're meant for bigger, better, more. And we're here to shine. We're here to be happy, and we're here to share our gifts. And anything less than that for very long can feel really out of alignment. The key is finding a balance and learning effective ways to examine what's going on when we're in that place, and then supporting ourselves back into our sweet spot of showing up as the best version of ourselves, which we want to try and be as much of the time as possible, right? Now, this doesn't mean not allowing ourselves an off day now and then. As I said, we're human. We're all going to experience that. And we all need space to rest and for creating mental and emotional space to allow for creativity and growth. Taking days like this once in a while is actually essential for being at our very best. And here's the key to making them work for us. When we are mindful about it, we have the power to turn the occasional off days into a day to think, journal, recharge, reflect, and be extra kind to ourselves. And in that sense, we're taking that off day and making it quite productive, right? And looking at it that way, there's actually a bigger part of that big picture. When you think of it as productive, when you think of days like that as needed in order to get back into your sweet spot and in order to get back to the best version of you, that eliminates any tendency to feel bad or guilty about it, right? In fact, it actually feels empowering when you look at it that way. Sometimes I've even intentionally scheduled a day for this into my calendar when I know I'm going to be tired after a big event or a really busy week, so that I actually have a scheduled mental health day or a couple of days even just to think and brainstorm and recharge. When I look at my calendar and I think, oh, after this particular week, I'm going to need a day, right? I'm going to need a minute and I'll schedule it into my calendar. And that feels really great and really intentional. So I believe this is a great practice to do. Now, other times I just wake up and I know in my soul that I need a minute, right? I know I need a day to just chill. And that's totally okay too, because I see these occasional days as part of empowering myself to be the best version of me, and as part of getting back into a place where I can show up with all of my energy and all of my light to accomplish what I want to accomplish. So last week, there was a day when I woke up and my soul was telling me that I needed to give myself some grace and allow for an off day. I was having all kinds of feelings about all kinds of things, and I had some brain fog, and I just felt like tired and uninspired. And I'm sure you all can relate. We all have days like this now and then. But I took a minute and I realized, okay, so I need this day. This is going to recharge me to accomplish everything else I want. And it happened to be a Monday, which is kind of sometimes it's tempting to think of that as the worst day for it. But in a way, sometimes it's the best, because when you really need it, it can recharge you for the rest of the week, and you can create an amazing week just by allowing yourself that little bit of extra space, right? So that day, I just took care of the necessities in my work. And then I spent the rest of the day journaling and puttering around the house and planning for a future vacation. I also caught up on an episode of The Last of Us on HBO. Little known fact about me, I love science fiction and fantasy and apocalypse movies and shows, especially ones that have great human stories in them. I totally nerd out over them. So what does watching shows about alien invasions and zombie takeovers say about someone who teaches happiness? I'm not sure, but I love them. And like I said, especially the ones with the human stories, I don't know, they're an escape for me. All right, I'm getting off into the weeds here. So back on track, Kristi. Anyway, I was extra kind to myself that day and super mindful about my intention to allow myself a recharge day. And the next day I woke up and I felt so great and so energized. And I got so much more done that week because I was recharged and I just needed that space. And, looking back on that day, I actually wrote a lot of really great ideas and, thoughts about marketing, thoughts about classes I want to teach, videos I want to record. As they just freely came to me throughout the day, I just jotted them down to get them out of my brain. And now I have a list of some pretty great ideas, all because I allowed myself an off day and that space just to be. So when we get super mindful and intentional about our off days, then they're not so off, right? We can not only turn them into something that supports us, but we can also snap out of the funk much faster with this mindset. It just takes that little shift in thinking. Giving ourselves the grace to have a day like this now and then, to relieve ourselves of that pressure of trying to always be enough, actually recharges us. It's okay to not be at your best every single day. It's okay to say, you know what? I have days now and then where I'm not enough, and that's all right. So it's okay not to be enough now and then. And it's all part of being more than enough. So now for those times when the funk or burnout lasts more than a day or so, there are some things to examine that can help us get back on track. So here are some of the things I do. If I'm in a funk, if I'm having an off day for more than a day or two, I take a step back and here are some of the things I look at. What does your calendar look like? Is your schedule too full to live fully? Also, are you keeping a calendar? Because that is part of getting things out of your brain and relieving stress about what you got coming up. And you can also look at the big picture of your calendar and see if you're overscheduled. So take a look at what you might be able to remove from your calendar and clear some space for yourself, because sometimes that feeling of overwhelm and overcommitment can really add to slipping into a funk. All right, here's another one. What do your mornings currently look like? Are you starting off with healthy foods and good mindset practices? Or are you eating dessert for breakfast and rushing out the door with 2 different socks on, right? I mean, really look at the way you're starting your day, because I talk about this a lot. For anybody that follows me, they know that I always say the first place to changing your life is changing your mornings. And even for me, who practices this so often, now and then, especially when I get overscheduled or slip back into a little bit of a funk, my mornings will reflect that. And so when I want to snap out of it, one of the first things I do is I look at, hey, where am I off track with my morning practices? And I try to get back on track, and it sets everything else right. So that's another place to really look. So here's another one. What's your refrigerator and your pantry look like? This is very telling. If it's all cluttered and there's junk food in there, or you don't have enough of the things that you know nourish you and keep you going and energized, it might be time to just take a couple of hours and reorganize in there and clean some things out, clean out any science projects, and then take a trip to the store and pick up some healthy things that you know support you. And in your mind, you'll just feel better knowing that they're there. So it sounds simple, but taking a look at your refrigerator and pantry can really re-energize you and help you feel like you're getting back on track. It creates momentum. All these things create momentum, and momentum is the key to getting to where we want to be with anything. So here's another one. What does your current self-talk sound like? Do you need a self-talk makeover? Are you saying negative things about yourself? And I'm paraphrasing a quote from Yoko Ono here, but she says, try saying nothing negative about yourself for a whole month and see where that takes you. See how you feel. I love that. It's so true. Sometimes our negative self-talk can drag us down and we don't even realize it. Be kind to yourself with your words. Speak to yourself like you would speak to your best friend or someone you love. Or I always like to say, speak to yourself like you would speak to your dog, right? when I realize how sweetly I speak to my Thai, I really have to take a second and think, I need to be looking in the mirror and, talking that way to myself, going, hey, beautiful, we're going to have a good day. You're going to do great today. Those kinds of words are very uplifting. So take a look at your self-talk and see if maybe you need to do some word swaps or add a new affirmation or phrase into your day, right? That can really help reset things too. One more place to examine. What are your relationships currently looking like? Are you keeping in touch with good friends? Are you putting off hard conversations? Is there some friction between you and your partner that needs to be addressed? Are you in a relationship with a person who you know isn't good for you? Take a look at these things because our relationships are one of the foundational building blocks for our life. And if they're off, if we're not putting enough effort into them to take care of them because they need nurturing and caring just like anything else, or if we're in a relationship that isn't a right fit for us, that can all really bring us down. And usually right away, there are some tweaks and changes we can make immediately to improve those areas. So just taking a step back and realizing, oh yeah, this conversation I haven't had yet is really bringing me down. Let me schedule some time to get that in and let me think about the best way to approach it, and then knocking it out. Oh my gosh, just lifting a weight off yourself like that can change your energy immediately. Or calling an old friend who you haven't spoken to in a while, or returning a text from somebody that you know you owe a text to. Just get those things off your plate. It will just give you a new charge of energy and you'll feel great. That social connection, sometimes the lack of it can bring us into a funk and have us waking up feeling like we're in a weird space or having an off day. So just reconnecting with people we love and care about, recreating those connections can really lift us up. So those are some of the things you can do to help snap out of a funk. But also, like I mentioned earlier, just allowing yourself that space and, giving yourself a mental hug and saying, you know what, it's okay to have an off day. You're a human, right? Giving yourself some grace and not beating yourself up. In fact, take those occasional days and do all that you can to recharge your batteries and recharge yourself mentally, physically, and emotionally. And you will superpower yourself for the rest of the week or even the rest of the month or a few weeks after that. So it all works together in synergy. And this is how we get back in alignment, giving ourselves that grace to not be so perfect all the time, to not be enough occasionally, right? And saying that's okay. That's okay. You can look in the mirror and you can look at yourself with compassion and you can smile and you can say, I'm having an off day today and that's totally okay. I'm here for it, right? I'm here for it. That's really what it's all about. This kind of self-awareness and self-management and committing to being our best selves and showing up for our dreams while still allowing ourselves the needed space to not be blooming all the time is magical. If plants had to bloom with flowers every single day, they probably wouldn't live or thrive very well, right? And we are the same way. We can't be blooming every single day. But if we're nurtured and we're cared for and we have the right rest and the right light, we can bloom so much more often. And that's really what it's all about. We owe it to ourselves to be very intentional about all of this and to stop putting up with our own BS. So I love this quote from Elizabeth Gilbert that says, I've never seen any life transformation that didn't begin with the person in question finally getting sick of their own bullshit. And that is so true. It is so true. And, that also comes into play when we have another person in our life who needs to make some changes. No one else can encourage them or push them to make those changes unless they're sick enough of their own stuff, unless they so deeply inside themselves want to change. That's really where the biggest change and transformation comes from. That's when a person can really change. And that goes for ourselves too. When we really take the time to examine things and decide what we want and decide to show up for it and decide we're not going to put up for anything less, that's when we can create beautiful, amazing change and really step into our own personal power. Now, I know this to be true for me because years ago, I nearly had a breakdown from trying to force myself to fit into a life I wasn't meant for and didn't really belong in. And I got sick enough of my own stuff and finally decided once and for all to go on a massive quest to change my life and become a happier person. And everything I learned is what led me to the work I do today, which I'm so passionate about. But I wouldn't be here where I am today or have accomplished all I've accomplished without finally standing up and taking responsibility for my own circumstances and my own life, and then committing to working my ass off to create the happier, healthier, much more successful version of my life that I'm living today. And you know what? I am so grateful to my past self for that. I am so grateful to my past self every day. By the way, being grateful to your past self and forgiving your past self for mistakes is part of the grace of creating the life that you want to experience today. That's really big. We owe it to ourselves to make these powerful decisions and then to show up consistently for the change we want to create. And to have these days now and then when we feel like not enough, and that's okay. And we're not going to be perfect, and it's all good. I promise you that all of this that we've talked about on the show today is within you. Okay. So now it's time for Joy School Habits, the part of the show where I share a small habit you can start creating today that will have big impact for you. So today's Joy School Habit is actually a really fun one. And here it is. I would love for you to start today planning a vacation. How does that sound? Sounds pretty good, right? But here's why I want you to take this as seriously as I do. A study in 2014 at Cornell University showed that just the anticipation of an experience such as a vacation or a trip can significantly increase a person's happiness. This means that the planning and looking forward to a trip adds to your quality of life in the same way that actually taking the trip does. Just the planning and looking forward to it. Another study at the University of Surrey found that people are at their happiest when they have a vacation of some kind planned. That's pretty cool, right? So there's actual science behind this. So planning fun things to look forward to, and then the time that we spend anticipating them can increase our happiness and well-being significantly. So take a minute right now and close your eyes and think about a trip you've been wanting to take. Imagine you've booked it and imagine what it will be like. Feel that in your heart. Picture the scenery in your mind. This evokes great feelings, right? Yeah, more of that, please. Well, that's what the anticipation does for us. That's what the planning does for us. It really is a beautiful thing. And if you're on a budget, that's okay. It doesn't have to be a big, expensive, grand trip across the world. It could be a fun and inexpensive weekend away with a friend or a loved one, or even inviting a friend from out of town to come and stay for a weekend, and then planning fun activities for you together to look forward to on that weekend. So there are simple ways to have this experience and to have the benefits of anticipation and planning and having things to look forward to. So the whole point here is to create things to look forward to on a regular basis, to always have something planned on the horizon, in addition to all the other good things that we're creating in our lives. Always have something fun on the horizon to look forward to. This can elevate our joy and happiness right now. So it's not about escaping our life. It's about enhancing the already good life that we're creating. So I encourage you to take a few minutes today, start planning something, even if it's just going on some travel sites and doing a little initial research. That will give you the beginnings of those benefits that we talked about. Okay, so that's a wrap for today's show. If you enjoyed this episode, I would be so grateful if you would leave a review over on Apple Podcasts. This is how you can help the show reach more people who might actually enjoy it. And I read them all. I love hearing from you. Be sure to connect with me on social media over on Facebook, Instagram, and you can visit my website at KristiLingSpencer.com, where you can download some free gifts, including my workshop on the 11 habits of the happiest people. And you can find some other supportive resources I've got for you over there as well. So I am sending you so much love. This was so much fun today. These are some of my favorite things to talk about. Until next time, remember, you've got what it takes to create more amazing days. And more amazing days make up a pretty amazing life. Have a fantastic week, my beautiful friends, and I will be back with you soon. Cheers.